what we need to do is pull back and re-educate about fighting. So I have a starting point. And my starting point is, okay, so what is conflict? Go on, what is conflict? Fighting. Arguing. Differences. Seeing things differently. Okay, so I don't think that that's conflict, okay, all the things that you've named. I think conflict is a natural tension that arises when more than one person is gathered. And that natural tension doesn't have any words, it just exists. It's neither good or bad, it's a natural phenomenon. And if you never ever want to feel that tension, then just go and live in a cave on your own.
No, you have it with the cave then.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully the cave can't do any of those things back to you, so you'd end up having to sort it out inside. But yeah, so and what you described as conflict is the dispute that arises because we never got taught to identify that tension and work through it, either on your own or with the other person, or with someone standing in as the other person. And that for me is the beginning point. And if I'm going to do anything that I call restorative justice in the school or in any community or with any group of people, I want to get right back to that very basic thing. So here's the problem. We don't recognise that natural tension, then we sit on more frustration than we can actually tolerate before we say something. So by the time I say something, we see this, don't I see this on the housing estates all the time, with the gangs. By the time someone said something, they've sat on so much frustration that they're way out of their tolerances. They're living way out of their tolerances. So, of course, it comes as warfare. So, because we never got taught to recognise that, we end up in disputes. And in our society, we have 5 ways of resolving disputes. And anything you can think of, any strategy you can think of, will come under one of these headings. So the first way we have of resolving disputes is negotiation. Who can tell me what negotiation is? Getting your way. Yeah. Dialogue. Okay, yeah. So the idea of a negotiation is that the people who are having the dispute can somehow find a way to speak to each other in order to end up with something that works for all of them. So everybody can walk away having discussed it and feel satisfied and able to move on, something they can live with. Okay? So the idea of negotiation is to try to get to win-win. If you were using sales speak. Often, though, in negotiation, we end up with compromise. And I don't like compromise, and I'll explain why later. The second way we have of resolving disputes is arbitration. Can anyone tell me what arbitration is?
You take it to a third party.
Yeah. And what does the third party do? Yeah.
Both sides and make a decision.
Yeah. So in arbitration, we take the dispute to a third party. The third party listens to all the evidence and then makes a judgment. Okay? A really good example of arbitration is, has any of you watched Judge Judy? Yeah? Judge Judy is an arbitrator. So if you watch the programme, she's a sort of New Jersey lawyer, judge, and it's all set up like a courtroom, and they handle sort of petty disputes. The disputes are things like, you stayed at my house for 3 months, and during that time after you left, I got the phone bill, and it turned out you'd run up like $1,000 in international calls, and I want the money back. Or, you know, I lent you my car, and you crashed it, and then you didn't have any insurance. And she will hear the evidence, she will stand there and she will cross-examine both people quite aggressively sometimes. And in the car thing, she may say, well, you know, you were stupid to lend someone your car without checking the insurance. That's like, so you can take half the blame for that. Or, you know, with the phone bill thing, she may turn around and say, well, you know, that's a completely selfish thing to do, pay up. What's interesting about it, and then at a given point, she makes a decision and she bangs her gavel and that's it, case done. What's interesting about that is at the end of it, there are the people on the steps of the court, and the person in whose favour it's been found says, well, of course, this is a perfect example of wonderful justice, and of course, I knew I was right. And the other person is standing on the steps going, this is a complete travesty. She didn't hear this, and she completely ignored me when I tried to say X or Y. And of course, the problem with that is if those two people need, for some reason, to continue with a relationship, we might have won something or lost something, but the relationship's in tatters. The next way we have of resolving a dispute is litigation. So what's litigation? Court, law, yeah? Okay, so litigation is where, now it's not me going to the arbitrator, so we've reached out. I am now going to hire somebody, a lawyer, for example, to fight my battle for me. So in this scenario, there's some chance of fairness. I still have some stake in my dispute, but at this point, I've now handed my dispute over to you. What is your interest? Making money, yeah. But what's your interest in me? For me to win. At what cost? Any. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this will nearly always result in a win-lose. Sometimes a lose-lose. Yes, yes. But the idea is, now I'm not even fighting my own battle here. I've handed it over to someone else. I mean, it's quite interesting. I do quite a lot of divorce work, and I often say to couples, what we need to do is, this is the place to do the negotiating. Don't get a lawyer to negotiate for you. This is the place to negotiate. And then at the end of our process, you both can instruct one lawyer on what you want. Simple, cheap. And if I'm thinking about particularly a couple that I'm working with at the moment who've got an 8-year-old boy. And if you think about it, they've been coming to me for about a year and 3 months. And this is in private practice, and a session has cost £80, and they've had about 15 sessions. What's the maths on that? Sorry? No, it's a bit more than that, isn't it? About 1,200 quid over about a year. And what we've ended up with is a position where he's actually now saying, okay, I can let go. Now I can let go. So I think that's really good value for money. 1,200 quid plus the relationship as co-parents working, and no lawyers involved yet. Not one penny's been spent on the lawyer.